The truth about fat phobia. Why the patriarchy needs you to hate yourself. Welcome to Stay at Home Feminist. Your soft girl era starts here, along with the fall of the patriarchy. I'm Cece Binks, your favorite feminist with a TikTok addiction. And today we're diving into a topic that's as insidious as it is absurd. Diet culture and fat phobia. Yes, we are about to dismantle that toxic little voice inside your head that insists you will only be worthy if you fit into your jeans from high school. Spoiler alert, you are always worthy, no matter what size your pants are. When I think about the ways in which diet culture and fat phobia have affected my life, I can't just think of one example. It's just such a part of my existence that I almost don't even know how to think about existing without having some sort of negative self-talk around the way I'm looking, the way I'm fitting into my pants, my size. And I think we can all relate, especially the older you get. I feel like almost every woman I've talked to, but even men, they are like, wow, I had no idea I had body dysmorphia my entire life until I'm looking at pictures of me 2 years ago, 5 years ago, X amount of time ago. And I'm like, holy cow, I cannot believe I thought I was fat then. And I think that is something that is so sadly true for so many of us. I see pictures of me when I was like, oh my gosh, I look awful, this and that. And I'm like literally so small, like literally so small. And it really, really reminds me, especially in this moment in time, how much it benefits others for you to prioritize being small. I think about all the time I wasted and all the situations I was in where I didn't feel good enough because I didn't feel small enough. And when I really break that down, it's just like, this explosion in my mind of like, so much time wasted, so much insecurities just at the forefront for no reason. Like, why am I thinking about what I look like in a job interview? Obviously, you want to be presentable. The way you show up in the world is like, it matters. But like, I would go into job interviews or like situations, like not dates where maybe it makes more sense to be so focused on appearance since people are, since you're dating for looks or whatever. And I would just be so intensely like critical and showing up so insecure because I was so worried about what I look like and what I thought I lacked and all this negative self-talk that it's like took away so much from the moment and so much of like that inner confidence that is so beautiful no matter what you look like and how much time it wasted for me. Think of all the things. It's so sad for me to think about all the things I could have been doing if I wasn't so worried about staying small. And I think that is the perfect like representation that highlights the ways in which diet culture is oppressive. It literally wants you to take up less space. In this moment in time, ladies, let's take up as much space as we can. All right. Any body size is valid. I'm really, really thankful to be in a moment in time where that is normal thing to say. Like it's not like radical for me to say that. And also, boy, do I still to this day struggle with that voice that the patriarchy and diet culture and fat phobia has instilled in me. And I still feel ashamed when I feel myself being fat phobic and I'm like, oh my God, like I thought we unlearned this. Like I thought we realized how awful that was. And I know it is, but it is just, it's almost like a jerk reflex, knee-jerk reaction. It's almost like a reflex because it's so embedded in my brain. And when I think about my most like facepalm diet fad sort of diet culture story, again, I can't really think of one. Like my mind is flooded with just moments of my life. My grandparents have both passed on. And I think about times that I was like in a bitchy mood or not just being my best, most present self at family functions with family members who are no longer alive, like when they were alive, because I was so worried about like what I looked like or feeling big or fat, which is so ridiculous if you could see how anorexically small I used to be. Oh yeah, by the way, trigger warning for this episode, like ED has been a part of my life. This is what the episode is really going to be highlighting. Disordered eating, diet culture, and just how normalized it is really what the conversation is about today. If you didn't catch that, there is a massive trigger warning. I think about when I was a teenager and I started to try and cut out carbs at like 13 or 14 years old because I wanted to look like the models in the magazines. And I had these magazines that my mom would get, and like some health ones or just normal ones that had like things you can do to lose weight. And one of them had like an ab routine. And I think it was Eva Longoria's ab routine or Jessica Alba's ab routine. And I would do that on my floor every single day, or like almost every day. And that is like, I feel like when it first really, really started to manifest into my life. But yeah, I had been very aware about the way I looked since I was a child. My relationship with my body has changed so much over the years in a way that I'm so grateful. I listened to Dope Queen Phoebes, I might be butchering that, had this podcast called All the White Men. Ugh, I need to look this up. I feel like I'm getting this wrong. But Jameela Jamil was on this podcast, and she said something to the effect of, she was sharing her story with her ED in her life. And she said something to the effect that even though I wasn't anorexic anymore, my mind still was. And that was such an aha moment for me, because I had been struggling with disordered eating when I was younger and then let that go and was eating normally, maybe eating too much, maybe gone a little bit the other way, because I just felt like I couldn't pay attention to what I was eating, or else it was like toxic and it just wasn't good. I had no healthy relationship with food on either end of the spectrum, and which I feel like is really common. And when I heard this thing about, even though she wasn't anorexic, but her mind was, like, it made so much sense, because I felt like every single day, even though I wasn't starving myself anymore, I had such a negative, almost hatred to myself for like every little thing. It's like, I almost don't even know how to explain it better than that. Like, you either get it or you don't. Like, the anorexic mind, the ways in which that like disease that is ED really is such a mental thing, and it has so much to do with like negative self-talk and really thinking your worth is like tied up to what you look like. And I know there's like psychological things about it needing to be about control and like other things, and that's not what I'm here to talk about. But yeah, I think that was a pivotal moment in my life where I really started to be the observer of these thoughts about the way I looked and about my appearance and how batshit it was, and how much pressure I put on myself and how that was getting in the way. And again, why I'm here wanting to talk about this today is because I feel like this is something we are like brought up with from cradle to the grave, and it is instilled in us so young. And it is really sort of like, yeah, the media, yeah, this sort of like normalized or not to be this big of a deal. And I'm like, look at the ways in which the world is asking you to be smaller and ignore them and love yourself. Look at the ways in which the world is asking you to hate yourself or want to change or always like, that is like capitalism. That is the patriarchy. That is all these structures that I'm so passionate about dismantling, like working through, because it's a lot easier for you to be docile about making change in the world when you're so obsessed with what you're eating. It's really easy for you to be distracted about getting this procedure or go to the gym and I get procedures and all of that. I'm not trying to say don't do that, but I guess it is just like everything in moderation. And I think that's really the point of it all. It's like, why does diet culture have such a chokehold on society, and who is benefiting here? Because it's not me and you, girl. Girly pop, it is not us. And I think when we really look at it, we know that. I think that's an obvious thing to say, but it needs to be said. It's not us. It is the makeup conglomerates. I love makeup. I'm makeup girly. I love looking cute. I love style. I'm not saying like you need to not care about what you look like in this world. That makes sense. But being aware of the chokehold that diet culture has on you and the ways in which you kind of just like get to lovingly detach from that and be kinder to yourself. Like, if that is what everyone took away from this episode, is just like, this doesn't serve me and it serves like white supremacy and the patriarchy. So let's not do that. And also, let's be kind to ourselves. Those are the 2 points of this episode I'm trying to make. I think diet culture has affected me so personally on so many levels. And it took me a long time to even realize how pervasive it was for me. Like, it was so normal for me my whole life to be so hard on myself on the way I looked. And I think about times in which I was like judging other people for how they looked and like just so, like so critical and so superficial and so just like, yuck. And again, who is it benefiting here? I think for us to really like understand that context, we need to dig a little bit into where fat phobia and diet culture came from. Fat phobia is the result of white supremacy. And I think it's important that we really, really talk about the ways in which fat phobia and diet culture go way deeper than just your jean size. It's about control and it's about oppression. Historically, thinness was weaponized by white supremacy as a marker of civilization, of how civilized someone was. And it was used as a way to shame Black, Indigenous, and essentially non-European bodies. Colonizers and white supremacists used this as one of the many tools to label certain people uncivilized or undesirable, basically trying to make them less human. We know the ways in which they were doing that already with skin color, and this was just like another way to add to that horrible way of thinking, which I think for me, that has been really powerful. Whenever I am catching myself in a moment of being fat phobic or being super negative or feeling like a way about like anti-fatness, I'm just like, you are upholding what these colonizer white supremacists wanted you to do. So don't. Just stop. Just stop doing that. Why are you pushing this fucking colonizer agenda in 2025? Put that down. I don't want to be a white supremacist. This is a very, very powerful yet simple way in which we can sort of pull out pieces of the Jenga tower that is white supremacy and is the patriarchy that is so prevalent around us. It's just like by not being fat phobic, by not being so obsessed with the way you look or the ways others look, or like just yuck. Ugh, I'm so over it, but I'm still so in it. So I am finding it hard to talk about. And we know this today, that your weight isn't necessarily indicative to good health. And that's the same way it was when white supremacy was wielding fat phobia as a tool. Like, it wasn't about health, it was about power. And then the patriarchy hopped on board and started making a woman's worth how small she could make herself, literally and figuratively. And think about it, like, we're obsessing over calories and thigh gaps, and we're not challenging the systems that keep us down. Less calorie counting, more standing up for human rights is my cardio. That's what I want to do here. And as we both know, it's everywhere. Media over and over again glorifies one sort of body type while erasing other diverse and beautiful ones. And yeah, we're becoming more inclusive, and I'm thankful to see more representation, but we got a long way to go. And I think it really does start at looking at the ways this is yielded as a weapon of oppression. Even today, healthcare, and as I said in the last episode, there will be an episode specifically focused on healthcare and the patriarchy, but as it relates to here, healthcare ignores fat people. If you're a fat person and you have a real issue, they're like, it's because you're fat. That happens. Like, that is what happens. Dismissing just weight as someone's health problem is actually insane, and it should be medical malpractice. And again, fat phobia and diet culture are not random. They are tools of oppression to keep women compliant and certain communities marginalized. But even though this is so pervasive, it can be sort of hard to like pinpoint and define. To me, diet culture is the belief that your worth is related to your waistline. And it's so again, like, you think about the ways that they control women, and it's so crazy because women literally like can expand so much because they bring life into this world. And yet women are so scrutinized by how they look. And it's just like, it blows my mind. There are some key aspects of diet culture that it's worth sort of highlighting high level so that you know it when you see it. Because again, it is just such a part of our world that it is kind of hard to even notice where it is. So one key aspect of diet culture, so it might be diet culture if there's a moralization around food, how foods are labeled either good or bad. Guilty pleasure, that's a phrase I hate that I really, really try not to use, because like, just enjoy the pleasure. Why are you feeling guilty about eating something? I think also like moralization of food is like, and I went on a hike yesterday and went out for brunch after and almost said this, like felt myself being like, wow, I'm so excited to eat. Like, we really earned this meal. And I was like, don't say that. Like, don't say that. Like, you need to eat to survive. You don't just get to like earn meals when you go on hikes. And like, again, even through all this work I've done, like, this is just like such a part of life. It is just such like a normal thing to say. And I feel like no one would have even batted an eye if I said that. They're like, yeah, we went on a 3-mile hike. We did earn it. And I just like had to stop myself from saying it because it is just such like a normal, again, pervasive part of us. And the moralization of food is really, really everywhere. And yeah, I think with that, like food being good or bad, I think that also sort of stems from the ways in which diet culture and fat phobia make certain bodies good and certain bodies bad. labeling food good and bad, it like comes from the same place of labeling certain body types good or bad. And diet culture really, really promotes thinness being healthy. As I just discussed, like fat people literally don't get the same medical care as thin people because of their weight being such like a thing that is discriminatory for them. It's this false idea that just because you're thin, you're healthy. And that's not true. I look at when I was at my thinnest, and that was when I was probably my most unhealthy, both physically and mentally. Another key aspect of diet culture is the capitalism aspect of it. It is super, super profit driven. Diet culture profits off your insecurities. It profits off everything from detox teas to crash diets. And we know this, but I feel like we keep falling for it time and time again. Diet culture is like that manipulative ex who just profits off making you feel less than. Time to break up, babe. Like, we do not need this manipulative little voice in our head. Cold turkey, bye, block. And I feel like it's almost hard to talk about the ways in which these sort of elements of diet culture have become so ingrained in our society, because it's like, again, just so normalized. It's like, at what point was being thin more important than being happy? Like, what was the secret meeting I missed? Because we're over it. I think it's really, really sad to see how obsessed the world is with thinness. And yes, we are improving. And also, who is benefiting from this madness? Like, for me, again, I will say this over and over again, like, it is the patriarchy. It is not helpful for women or for anyone to be so critical of themselves. And I think so. I have found myself on the conservative male side of TikTok more often than I would have liked to. And I notice that when men come for me, they come for my age. When they try to insult me and when they're trying to get like hit the jugular and like go for the throat, the thing is that they come for are my age, my weight, my looks, which if you see me on TikTok, like, I am not looking this cute. Like, I do not put on makeup when I make my TikToks. I just don't. And me being single, which is hilarious because I'm like married to the best person in the whole world. And again, they're like, don't know that because I don't share that on TikTok. And people are like, you're a single, ugly, old, fat woman. Shut the F up. Like, you are not valid. Like, what you have to say does not matter because you are a single 30-plus-year-old woman who's not attractive and who has a belly. Like, that is what they tell me. And I think that is exactly like proving the point of everything I'm trying to say is like, this system of diet culture, this like normalization of diet culture and judging people is about getting you to shut the fuck up. It is about getting you to be insecure and to not speak your truth and to stay small and to shut the fuck up. I see it viscerally in my comment section, and so it's very easy for me to spot because people are literally being like, shut up, go eat a salad. You had a belly when you stood up, so you shouldn't say anything. And I'm old enough to be like, okay, first of all, you're probably like a 14-year-old with zero facial hair, so I'm not going to fucking listen to you. But second of all, like, wow, do you feel empowered to say that to me? And wow, do you know, or do you think that that will be the thing that shuts me up? If you know me, you know I love to yap. I'm not going to shut the fuck up ever. I could gain 20, 100 pounds, lose 20, 100 pounds. I'm going to stay fucking talking. But the fact that you think that that is a valid excuse or a valid way to tell me that like the points I'm making don't matter and the things I have to say don't matter and my truth shouldn't be shared is wild. And it's not one or two comments. Like, if you are a woman on the internet, you know how you are flooded in these ways, especially if you're like out there being a rah-rah feminist, like some of us. So yeah, dude, it's fucking crazy to see. And I think nothing can prove my point more than that. And I wish, and anyone who tries to tell you to shut the fuck up because of how you look, like, know that it's because you're great. Like, know that that is them being insecure. It is about them. It is not about you. But again, like, that is the patriarchy. That is the system of oppression saying, shh, why are you being loud here? Go be smaller. Go to the gym. Go count your calories. Go get a fucking facelift, which, like, I'm down to go to the gym and get a facelift. Like, I am. But I'm going to do those things and I'm going to talk my shit. Okay? It's 2025, basically. So because this can be such a hard thing to pinpoint, I would like to jump into my next segment called Critics Corner. hopefully this is your inner critic we're talking about, but unfortunately, it might be actual people in your life, like those trolls in my comment section I was just talking about. Unfortunately, we have like real life trolls too. Oof, I think about ex-boyfriends that really, really knew how to make me feel insecure about, like, they didn't want me to wear something short or slutty and fucking sexy that looked amazing on me. And they would just like comment on my body so that I would change into whatever they wanted me to wear. Tactic of manipulation. So it might be someone you're dating. It might be one of your parents. Most of us have almond moms. We know how that shit goes. But basically, welcome to Critics Corner, where we take down that annoying inner or sometimes outer voice that won't stop commenting on your body. So if you're driving or walking, you might want to just pause and think your answer. But if you can, grab a pen and paper and maybe jot some of these down, because as much as me blabbing away might be helpful to really, really dismantle and unlearn our inner misogyny, we got to figure out what's going on with us. And although a lot of these concepts are universal, we are each individuals who have our own experience. So I encourage you to really think through what your version of this is. Question number 1. What's the most ridiculous thing your inner critic has ever said to you? And how do we know to shut that voice down? Feel free to pause if you want to think about yours or journal. I'm going to share mine, and oof, it's gross. Okay. So recently I was at my parents' house and just looking through old photo albums of me when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, like pre-puberty. And I was a small kid. I was a skinny, little scrawny kid. And I like had this thought of like, wow, like I wish my body looked like that still. Like I was like wishing I was still super, super skinny. And I was literally like, observed that thought and was like, oh my God, how long have I been wanting to be as skinny as a 7-year-old, as a 9-year-old? Like, why is that what I think would look best on me, is to look like a 10-year-old like that? I'm trying to verbalize the profound impact catching that thought had on me, because it's like, how many times have I had a thought like that and be like, where did this come from? Because I know when I see other women, when I see other like full figured, curvy people, like I am like mid-size, small mid-size, like I'm a medium, I can be a large. Even when I was like skinny, I always had curves to me, even when I was like 20 pounds skinnier. And I love curves. Like, I mean, all shapes are valid and beautiful, and wallpaper speak for me. But yeah, this idea that being as thin as I was pre-pubescent was like something I felt like jealous of or like wanting. It was so gross to me, honestly. It was so disturbing to me, honestly. And it really, really reminded me the ways in which society is like, yeah, you better go be a little girl. You better keep yourself as small as a little girl and as docile as a little girl and all these things. And it's just, oof, boy, that's a heavy one. I probably should talk about it more with my therapist before talking about it on a podcast, but that was probably the most ridiculous thing my inner critic has ever said, just because I was like blown away by that thought. And once I examined it, I was like, that's not really how I feel. That is like not my authentic truth. Like that was some wild ass conditioning that is just lingered in there, thinking that my body type as fucking 9-year-old was better than what I have today. And I do feel really lucky to have a partner who, like, I've gained 20 pounds in this relationship, 10 to 20 pounds in this relationship. And my partner has really, really like loved the way when I expand, like loved what my body looks like at all sizes. And every time I am like bigger and worried about that, he's like, no, you look like such a woman. Like, it's so hot. And I think about men I've dated before, or men in my comment section, or whoever, probably boys in my comment section, or whoever, who helped my brain form this idea that being that small was a goal. I can't even fathom that I thought that. And that was outrageous for me. And it honestly was actually really healing too, because once I like saw that thought, I was able to sort of just like pluck it out and be like, that does not serve me anymore. And that is not my truth, and move on. But wow, to have that thought as a 32-year-old, I'm 33 now, but I was 32 then, like, it made me so sad for myself. And speaking of recognizing our thoughts, next question, how can we start to recognize these thoughts before they take over? I think really, really getting in touch with thoughts that serve you and thoughts that are authentic to you. Like that thought scared me when I thought that. Like I looked through like 4 pages of the picture of the photo album being like, wow, look how skinny I was. That's amazing. Like coveting that thinness before I was like, whoa, what are you saying? Are you saying you'd prefer to look like a 9-year-old? Like, what, girl? No. And yeah, I think being able to even get in that habit of observing that thoughts, I think I might have not have even noticed that thought before. A different version of me would have just been like, yeah, of course I should want to be that thin. That's the goal. What are you talking about? Why would that be weird? You know? And so I think even just getting into the practice of observing your thoughts, you can sort of interrupt them and be like, yep, that does not serve me before they take over, before they embed, or before they become a part of you. I think also with my experience, like when I'm in luteal phase, like I feel so gross and I'm so bloated and I don't fit my clothes the same way. And like, instead of just being like, you're fat, you're bloated, you're this, you're that, and being, you're like, I just feel like saggy, like I feel like a big saggy lump of something. Instead of just like validating that, I'm just like, girl, you're in your luteal phase, go off. Like your body's different this week. Like be gentle about it. And catching myself before I am like feeling super critical or super gonna let that derail me because I didn't fit into this. Just wear something a little baggier. Be gentle with yourself. So you really got to start recognizing and reorganizing these thoughts. What's your go-to clap back when your inner critic starts acting up? Ooh, that is a good one. I think mine, whenever I'm thinking something fat phobic, I remind myself that that is supporting white supremacy and I don't want to act like a white supremacist. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And again, I like to sort of like pull at that thread and be like, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling that? And just sort of like see it, acknowledge it, let it go. That doesn't serve me anymore. Like saying those things like, okay, I see you. Thank you. That doesn't serve me anymore. Trying to like literally rewire my brain. That is what I do with these clapbacks. But I think, yeah, one of my favorite clapbacks is that doesn't serve me anymore. That supports white supremacy and I don't want to support white supremacy. So no thanks. And mantras are good too, but I'll let you think of your own and let me know if you have any good ones. Okay, last question of Critics Corner is, what do you think causes our inner critic to get so loud? And how do we turn down the volume on it? I think one of the things that causes my inner critic to get so loud is like if I'm already feeling insecure about something, like if I'm already feeling insecure about like a social anxiety, seeing someone I haven't seen in a while or going to be on camera or whatever, like that is when the volume is going to be pumped up. Or if I'm feeling insecure about something else in my life, like then all those little monster thoughts come out. And I think, again, you just turn the volume down on it by being aware of it. And by just, you got to actively like be like, no, thanks. Like, no, thank you, brain. I don't do this, but I've heard of people who call that sort of inner critic, like give it a name. And whenever you see it, it's like, imagine the name is Felicia. You're just sort of like, bye, Felicia. Like, thanks, but no thanks. And giving it a name, I heard is helpful. I've never tried that, but let me know if you have, because maybe I should when I'm having fucking crazy thoughts like the ones I just shared. So moving on, I think diving a little bit more into the fat phobia aspect of diet culture, I think it's important to note that it is like, fat phobia isn't just like disliking fatness. It's like fearing it. Like fat, you are like scared of getting fat or fat people and creating a whole culture around avoiding fat people or avoiding getting fat yourself. And like that is so wild that that is a part of it. And again, like fat phobia is deeply tied to racism and white supremacy. Historically, thinness was a way to distinguish who was civilized and not. Basically, people who were considered primitive were not only Black and Indigenous, but they were larger bodied. So again, fat phobia isn't just like a feeling or a bad vibe. I mean, it can be, but it's literally baked into the way society treats people and values people. And guess who it hits the hardest? Women and femmes, especially women and femmes of color, especially Black women and femmes, especially Indigenous women and femmes. So again, let's not uphold that. That does not serve us. Put that down. And again, it is super ingrained in every life. It is baked into media, healthcare, or all of our conversations. I think getting married was crazy for me because I had friends who are like woke vibes who were like, you got to get your wedding body ready. You better start working out. You want to get wedding ready. And I was like, ew, like, how are you saying that to me? And like thinking that that's okay and supportive. Like, what? I was so shocked when people said that to me. The woman was too stunned to speak. I was literally like, didn't react, but I wish I would have and been like, why do you think that's an appropriate thing to say? And I really do feel like getting married was sort of like the final boss, or like one of the like final level, one of at least. I want to have kids, so that will actually probably be the final boss. But getting married was such like a hurdle that I got to jump over with my relationship with diet culture and fat phobia, because I was like, I am not going to let this be a part of my day. Yeah. Okay, like I'll work out and I'll try to be fit, but I'm not going to obsess over it. I'm not going to like starve myself and partake in disordered eating to fit into a certain thing and look a certain way. Like, this is where my body is at this moment in time. It might get bigger, it might get smaller, who knows? Bodies change, but I'm not going to let like my wedding day be this thing where I'm like so consumed about how I look that it takes away from like the fact that I'm marrying the love of my life and I'm in this beautiful place with all my friends and family. And again, from what I was saying in the beginning of the episode, like I think that is something I have had to learn, because I look back on moments in my life that this like care about my appearance was so at the forefront of that experience that it took away from those experiences with people I cared about, my grandparents who are no longer here, like people I love. And I think about that and like I have a lot of compassion for that version of myself, and also like a lot of love to her, and also like I don't need to do that anymore. And I'm happy to have learned those lessons, even if it was sort of the hard way. And yeah, but oof, people telling you need to get wedding ready is crazy. It's fucking so toxic. But because it is such a thing, no one thinks it's weird. I think like not commenting on bodies is a rule that I see my friends starting to teach their kids, like trying to make body neutrality a thing. And so like I get to work on gentle parenting, like my friends and like family members and like boomer parents, that like we don't need to comment on other people's bodies. Like we don't need to comment on other people's appearances. Like everybody is valid and shut the fuck up. So yeah, we will each have these moments in our lives where we want to be more critical of ourselves, where it makes more sense to be like hypersensitive about your appearance. I think things where there's going to be a lot of documentation of you is hard not to. And also like we get to dictate the experience we're having. And I think part of like letting go or releasing yourself from the shackles of diet culture and fat phobia is that empowerment, is being like, I get to choose how I react to this. Like I don't have to be a prisoner in my own mind anymore. Break free. I want to break free. Do it. 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 Speaking of me forcing things on you, I'm ready for our next segment, which is feminist affirmations. As always, please send yours in because we want to know what you like. Welcome to one of my favorite segments, feminist affirmations. Today, I'm ready to reclaim our self-worth one affirmation at a time. Repeat after me, even if it's just in your own head, if you're in public and don't want to be like saying this on the subway to yourself. My worth is not defined by my waistline. Now feel that power, okay? My worth is not defined by my waistline. My worth is not defined by my waistline. I can and will take up space. I can and I will take up space. I can and I will take up space. I thank my body for everything we've been through together. I love my body for everything we've been through together. I'm grateful to my body for everything we've been through together. So those were my favorite affirmations. I love all three of them. Anyways, do you have an affirmation that gets you through the day? Let me know. I would love to add it to my next feminist affirmations. Or if there's one that really stuck with you, let me know too. We can loop it back in. Last but not least, I think it's important that we talk about the psychological toll of diet culture and fat phobia. Diet culture isn't just bad for your physical health. It's bad for your mental health. I think for me, the way it was most horrible for my mental health was how consuming it was and how critical it made me of everything I did, everything I wore. It was just hypercritically focused on that. And it was just a really toxic state of being. And I sometimes fall back into it, but I really, really choose like empowerment and joy and love. And in a world that is asking you to hate yourself, like choosing joy and love and kindness and compassion is such a beautifully radical act. And I really feel like if you're like listening to this and you're lost and you're like, I hear you, I understand you, but like I am stuck in this toxic cycle. Again, like diet culture is like that toxic ex. And as much as you want to leave it, it can be very hard sometimes. I've been there and I get you, and that's valid. Start with being compassionate to yourself. Start with being compassionate about the fact that you don't know how to get out of this cycle. Kindness, compassion, love, and joy will get you where you want to go. I don't know why I said that in such a bitchy way, but like I'm a bitch, so I feel like diet culture goes hand in hand with like being your inner critic and like, as RuPaul likes to say, like your inner saboteur. And I think it's really important. I think it would be really helpful for people, again, wondering like, where do I go from here? Is like start noticing the way in which this culture fuels that self-sabotage. Be mindful of the ways that like you get just caught in the riptide of like negative self-talk and tearing yourself down and like not being good enough. And I see it over and over with women. I have a friend I was just talking to who in her first year of being a small business owner and was like feeling like she couldn't do anything or put anything out there without it being so perfect. And I was like, only women are this critical about everything. What would a white man do in your position? He would literally like throw fucking everything at the wall and be down for it. And like, we should be able to live our lives without having this pressure that if it's not perfect, it's not valid, because that's not true. You know, if anything, failure is a stepping stone to success. So like, let it happen, let it fail, let it not be perfect. Like this applies to you and yourself, but it's like, if you can unlearn that need to be perfect yourself, you will see the way it impacts like the meaningful work you do. Let it be messy. Let it be what it needs to be. Like you are important. Your voice is important. Be loud, take up space. Do it. I think for me, when I think about times where diet culture, like impacting my mental health became really obvious was when I moved to a new city and like I made no friends because I was so insecure. And every time I went somewhere, I was like, oh my gosh, they hate me. They think I'm fat and like I'm not valid. And I like struggled to get a job. I struggled to make friends. And I just like was so negative. Like, how can you achieve anything when you're being so negative? And like, I just look back and I feel like it was like this big suitcase I was just lugging around everywhere being like, don't look at the suitcase. But it's like, why didn't I just leave the suitcase at home if I didn't want people to look at it? I don't know if that's a good analogy, but anyways, long story short, diet culture is crazy. And one of the ways we get to step away from it and set it down for a moment is being in our soft girl era. Literally like softness. Like look at this softness that diet culture doesn't want me to have any of. And let's lean into our soft girl era a little bit. With that in mind, it's time for Soft Girl Diaries, the segment of the show where we get to embrace our softness as an act of rebellion in a world that wants us to be hard as nails. I think today in this episode, being a soft girl is really about choosing yourself over guilt, choosing what you want to eat or how you want to spend your time, and being gentle with yourself and not letting that guilt harass you. Yeah, I think my major contribution to being a soft girl is I have really learned to go to the gym because I want to be healthy and not because I want to be fit. And that means some weeks the healthier option is for me not to work out, and like that's okay, or not to push myself as hard, and that's okay. And like it has really transformed my life, just like focusing on actually being healthy and not what I look like. And that is soft girl era core for me. It is night and day for how I used to live and the ways I used to push myself for like the external validation. And now it's really like learning to listen to my body and figuring out what I need and really respecting my body and respecting myself. And again, like being a soft girl is such a radical act in this world that wants you to be hard and tough and go and push. And it's like, no, like, I'm just gonna not. How about no? So that is what I implore you with your soft girl diaries today, is choosing yourself over guilt, choosing yourself over shame. And what would that look like? I implore you to create like a calendar or a schedule. Maybe work with ChatGPT and like type in like what your dream schedule could be if you were prioritizing your health, your inner health over like what you looked like. And again, just step by step working to reject diet culture. It is so pervasive. And now that we're talking about it, I'm sure you will see it everywhere. And I think that is just like, again, just being soft and compassionate and gentle with yourself is amazing. I think it's hard to have like a strategy about where to go from here. All of us are at different places, and that's okay. But again, like if you don't know where to start, come back to being compassionate with yourself. I think that was always the hardest for me. Then being hard on myself about being hard on myself. And then again, I'm like in this toxic cycle where it's like interrupt that pattern with compassion and love and care for yourself. I think another important element here is fat acceptance and activism. And I think that is like a way in which we can make the world a better place is by accepting our own body and like radically loving ourselves and then supporting others and doing the same. I think that means, not buying from certain brands and being mindful about the brands you do buy. Like in a capitalistic society, like your dollar is your vote. And what are you voting for with the things you buy? Like, again, I'm not saying like don't buy makeup or clothes or this or that. Like I love jewelry. I love makeup. I love getting dressed and like doing my hair and makeup in a way that feels empowering and sexy and fun for me. I'm not saying not to do that, but be mindful. Be mindful about what you're doing and why and where you're shopping. And just, again, like accepting yourself and others as they are without judgment. Like you don't need to judge. You're fine. So yeah, I think another good tip is to be mindful about media consumption. Again, like your follow, your like, that's your vote. It's totally fine to unfollow and unsubscribe and just say bye, Felicia, to influencers or people that don't uplift you, that the way that they edit their photos or the way that they show themselves online, like make you feel bad about yourselves. There's so many influencers that do what I eat in a day. And if like that's triggering for you, like you do not need to see that. Like you are in control of what's on your feed. And I encourage you and want to empower you to be really mindful about that. You don't need to surround yourself with things that are going to make you feel bad about yourself, especially when it comes to you feeling safe in your own body. I think like Instagram culture is just so like everyone's best moments when they're looking their best, the best picture. It can be really draining. Again, it's so normalized and it's happening like in bigger media, but it's happening like with us, like we're doing it to each other. So yeah, the best thing for you, a good starting point for you, being aware of your thoughts is probably number one, and like observing your thoughts and then observing like what you're consuming. And is it like edited bodies that are unrealistic that are going to make you feel like no matter what, you're not good enough? Because if that's the case, like maybe you shouldn't be following them anymore. Maybe that's okay. Or pause or mute or whatever. Like, you don't have to like block everyone, or you could block it. But yeah, I think mindful media consumption is a huge part here. Again, the name of the game is protecting your peace. So do that, girl. Do you, babe. I'd love some inspo from you bad bitches. What is one thing that you'll do this week to distance yourself from diet culture? Because like, same, I want to do it. Let me know. Let me know what it is. So yeah, that's our episode on diet culture. Thank you for joining. Today, we unpacked the sneaky ways that diet culture seeps into our lives. We explored the racist roots of fat phobia and gave that inner critic a one-way ticket to shut the hell up, Bill. But most of all, we highlighted that embracing your soft girl era and treating yourself with love and compassion and kindness is not weakness. It is rebellion. It is strength. Next week, we will be talking about healthcare and the patriarchy, which I am so excited about. I have gone quite the healthcare journey, which I've referenced in a few of my episodes. So I'm really excited to be able to dive into what I've learned from my personal experience and get to share my truth and my story with that. So yeah, I'll see you when we're talking about healthcare and the patriarchy. I can't wait to dig into why the system was not built for us and how it's failing women every day. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Anyways, that's the show. Thank you for joining. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. It's a new show and we really want to know how we're impacting you and how you're feeling about it. So thanks for joining this episode of Stay at Home Feminist, and I'll see you soon. Bye.